Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Metacast. I'm your host, Taza and Adi, and we have a special guest today, Alison Alexander, co-founder and director of ethics and social policy. Alison, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me, Taz and Adi. Really lovely to meet you here and be live.
So, why don't you explain a little bit about what you do in the space, in the Web3 mess?
Cool. That's great. Thank you. So what do I do here? So I have the luxury position of being the co-founder of Metacampus. Now, what is Metacampus? So I'm going to first, people can look at our website and all of that, but I'm going to define it as Metacampus. Our mission is to unlock human potential. I got into Metacampus because I really felt Web3 gives us an opportunity to change the world. And I generally mean change the world, bring much more equality to the world, change the economic world. And the contribution we make to that is that what we do is we believe we can help unlock everyone's potential. And we can do that by helping to onboard professionals into the Web3. And I'm going to say like professionals, because people, when you hear Web3, they say tech or they say crypto and finance. But actually, what we're talking about is professionals from every possible discipline. So whether you talk about, this week I've been running some posts about collaboration. So whether you're talking about a fashion, whether you're talking about sports, whether you're talking about support services, whether you're talking about community workers, whether you're talking about accountants, builders, architects in the metaverse, every single professional is going to be affected by the Web3 evolution. And so for us, we are working in collaboration, forming partners with people so that we can help them onboard their staff, their workforce into the Web3 so that they can really benefit from the new tools.
Definitely. Alison, I wanted to know from your side, because there has been a personal embodiment of your identity itself within the transition from Web2 to Web3. And that's something even what Metacampus focuses on. Would you want to elaborate on why is it now really important for brands and individuals to really transition and think about moving into Web3 when they're still in Web2?
Yeah, no, it's really important for many reasons. Firstly, because their customers are in Web3. So you are right, even though companies are still operating in Web2, actually the people that they reach and serve are actually already shifting their mindset, especially if they're serving Gen Z, Gen Alpha, all of that. They are already all in the metaverse and they're using Web3 tools all the time. So firstly, it is about that. And that's also because, I often see Web3 as Web3 is built by the people for the people, because people are really wanting a new thing. People are saying like the crux of Web3 is around trust, transparency and decentralization. So people are really wanting those things. So if you're a Web2 brand, if you want to keep your clients and work with them, you need to go and meet them where they are. And therefore, you've really got to understand. In the metaverse, if you look at the moment and what we hear all the time, everyone's diving into the metaverse, aren't they? The shops, the different brands. But actually, they're just diving in at the moment because they know they need to be there, but they don't really know what to do with it. If you go into Decentraland or Sandbox, everyone's just built the same kind of shop that you see in the streets. And actually, they know they need to be there. They know that the population is going to be there, but it's how they start to engage. So that's why they need to enter the space now so that they can really start to learn. How can we utilize these new tools? How can we as a brand actually do business with our clients? At the moment, we do it via PayPal and people pay us by that. But how do we now use wallets to start transacting with our clients, because that's what they do. How do we start utilizing the blockchain and do all of our actions on the blockchain so it's transparent, so people start to say, I want to see. Everything you hear at the moment around crypto and all of the issues that are going on, people are immediately going to the blockchain and looking to watch the actions. And that's why brands need to come in, because it's what their customers actually, it also helps them do, and it enables them to engage better with their.
What advice would you give to Web2 companies, Alison, that are looking to make this transition? What advice would you give them?
Yeah. So I would say education, education, and education. So, and I literally have always said it in that way, because I think there are three components of it. There's the bit about learning what is Web3. It's kind of the reading bit about it, or the watching around, whether it's YouTube, listening to podcasts, reading books. What is it? What does it really mean? What do all the tools of Web3 mean? What is a blockchain? What is crypto? What is the metaverse? All of those things. So firstly, it's about education on knowledge. Then it's about, I always say, skill acquisition. So now you know that it's about wallets and it's about the metaverse. Do you know how to get into the metaverse, and you know what a wallet looks like, or do you know how to run a wallet? So, or do you know that Twitter is the kind of medium in where everyone communicates? Do you know how to utilize that? So it's the skill acquisition. And then the final bit of the education is around mindset. Now, this is the bit about really inviting brands to think about this, not to just say, oh, we're going to start doing business by wallets and we're going to put all of our transactions on the blockchain. Actually, you've got to understand what that means. So you really need to get deep into the culture. So for us, that's why we've spent like a year looking around at all the different training that people can do. And what we noticed, when people just watch training online, they kind of learn the knowledge bit, but actually they don't get the culture. And that's why what we're doing is those collaborations with creators who are deep in the Web3 to actually run and do live, because we think you need to do in live sessions and in real time. So people really get to, because what I say today about Web3 could be out of date next week or in a month's time, because it is evolving so much. So my advice to brands is to get education, education, education. My second piece of advice is to look internally as to who are your champions of it. When you go and talk to brands or any companies, what I'm picking up is that there's always a champion somewhere. And sometimes it's not the most senior person. It's somebody who's passionate about Web3 and is really going and knocking on the doors of everyone in the company saying, we should be doing Web3, we should be doing Web3. And so it's finding those within. And if you don't have them, then and go and find those people who are really embedded in Web3, or when we say really embedded, it's still new, so you can't have 10-year history of it, but who are living and breathing it and really understand it, and bring them into your company, and then go and talk to your clients, do those tests. What do they want? How are they operating? So there's some of the thoughts of what I'd share with a Web2 company to get them into Web3.
Amazing. I think, Alison, as you may rightly mentioned, there's so much. I think there's still curiosity around this field. A lot of people are still trying to answer questions and build up the right questions as to what it means to be in a Web3 space. Education is one of the strongest elements that bridges the gap for brands, building the right consumer journeys, how they would interact with blockchains. As you rightly mentioned, it's an amazing space to be in. And Alison, I wanted to know from your end, what kind of startups are you working with right now at Metacampus? Are there any examples that you could share with us in terms of what's really happening in the space and what people could, envision when they would be involved with the process?
Yeah, definitely. So firstly, just to kind of reiterate, so Metacampus has 3 pillars that we kind of put everything on. So we've talked a lot about the learning, and we call it like lifetime onboarding into Web3, because as we've said, it will grow. Then we do a whole like pillar around transformation, and some of that is when companies work with us to onboard their staff, they do naturally transform how they do business. But actually, we can also sit alongside companies doing some of what we just talked about. How do we really get to that new operational? And then we've got an element which is around activation, growth. Yep. How do we help founders come into the Web3 space? So great question. So I want to just mention 2 quick startups that we're working with and that we've linked with investors. One is called I Am On Chain. Now, this is, the founders of this are really passionate about addressing modern slavery. So what they're doing is, at the moment, I don't know if you know that there's a bit of a trend for 4-digit identities. So people like to have, when they have their PFP on Twitter, they might have 4 digits that they use as their identity. So a famous one is 6529 punk, yeah? But a lot of them are having those identities. And sports players have an identity, what they wear on. So what these guys have done is that they've thought of this company where they have I am on chain 1 to 10.eth. And what they're doing is they are then selling those on the secondary market so that then people can be positive about their identity. I am, so for me, I'm quite old, guys, so mine would be I am 9968, which is my date of birth. And so I might proudly say that, but by doing that, I then raise funds because half of the sales go to charities to address modern. So it's really trying to address. The most important thing about Metacampus is that when we bring startups or support startups, they all will have a social. So, and a second one that we have is called Dustbusters. And as you would imagine, it is called Dustbusters because it is gathering up dust. So those people who have been in the Web3 space for a couple of years, they have gathered a lot of NFTs, so those non-fungible tokens, yeah, that some of them have just been airdropped, they've been given, or they've bought for a couple of dollars, or at all different levels. And projects have come to the market. But actually now there's a bit of stagnation and they're just sitting in their wallets. So we call that dust. So Dustbusters is aiming to gather up all the dust of what people are saying, well, I don't really know what to do with it, or I'm not going to sell it as a single item. We gather them all up. The company will then sell them. The owner gets a percentage. The company makes money. But the other element that they're doing about social good is they're training people from underrepresented communities to be traders, so that then they get employment and learn all about Web3 and being traders. So some really, for me, I'm very much into social good and how we make change and bring in underrepresented groups. So that really does.
Amazing.
Good. No, I think Web3 and blockchain provide a lot of benefit around social policies. I mentioned in one of my previous podcasts, there was a project called the Elohi project, and it was a blockchain-based game, and essentially when you planted a tree in that blockchain game, it planted a tree in real life. So there's real life utility around these technologies. Alison, you're an ambassador for a number of female-led projects. What's your thought about Web3 and women in the space?
I wish I could say that I feel that women are equally represented in this space, but we are not quite there yet. We're getting there, but it's just about, to be really clear, we've got a bit of a journey to go on. So I believe that there is a real need for both women-led projects that advocate and promote women's engagement in all levels of Web3. And they also provide education, because sometimes women like to have conversations with women about learning. Yeah, and so that's a really great way. So a lot of NFT projects that started in kind of late 21, early 22, they were all built on the premise of bringing more women into Web3 and to provide a means for them to go into. So I find that is really helpful. But I think one of the important things, and we were at NFT London last week talking about this, and what we were saying as a panel of women is that is brilliant, but what we need is to help everyone be our allies. Because what we need is for everyone to be pursuing this agenda. So the same as I said, like Metacampus, their focus is on social good. Everything's got to have a social good. Yeah, we'll help you founder your company, but what's the social good element? This is about saying to all founders, to everyone who works in the Web3 world, okay, have a look around and see who's you. And do you feel that those people around you represent the world? And if they do, great. But if they don't, really reach out and start to bring those underrepresented groups. So whether that's women, whether that's people of color, people with disabilities, really look and then be our allies. So the same as you guys talking to me, giving me this space, giving me this voice, you're being my ally, really helping me to do that. It's about saying to them, please be the ally of underrepresented groups if you feel that you are in those. And when you bring them in, the most important thing is we all know that over the years you've got to have a certain number of women, you've got to have a certain number of people of color, you've got to have a certain number of people with disability in your workforce. But actually, all that does, that just brings diversity in. But actually, the way to get an organization to thrive is to have that diversity working in the organization for the organization. And that means you have to give it a voice. So that means when I come in, I need to also feel empowered to have a voice. And that's a really important thing. So I always say two things around: make sure you're looking around the room. And if you don't have those that don't look like you in the room, bring them in. But once you give them a space and make sure that they have a voice. And when they're having the voice, make sure how that voice is really empowering and that people can see how they're contributing to the growth. So I hope that answers the question around women. I think it's wider. But it's really a call to action. I think every time somebody says, I'm going to do this, it's thinking, okay, can I help bring more people in and more people who are different to me? And that's a really important thing.
Alison, I think there's a lot of females that are looking to enter the Web3 metaverse space will take inspiration to someone like yourself leading this space and getting onto like platforms like this podcast and just having a voice. I think that's very much needed. So thank you.
No, and thank you for giving me the space, because that, as I said, you can't underestimate actually having the invitation to speak and start to, because as you say, then when people listen, they're people that represent them speaking as well and being in a conversation with you about what we're doing in the space. And
definitely, it's a big move, and I think it's a really strong move that this, we're progressing with such values and such notions with the Web3 space. Alison, I mean, honestly, your presence at NFT London. We also had one more person who joined us, who was also a speaker at NFT London, Charmaine Short from Metaverse, and she also shared, a similar notion around how things were going around. It's amazing to know, this perspective. Alison, I think you've brought in a very good perspective in terms of a purpose-driven metaverse or a purpose-driven space. If you had three wishes, what would they be, in the future? Because of course, there's so many curious people out there listening to this session. What would be your?
My three wishes for what Web3. I think I really want Web3 to be, and that can't be one person's job. So my wish is that everyone who is building Web3, whether it's a platform, a metaverse platform, they're expanding the tools, they are developing vehicles for people to learn, is really absolutely make it accessible. So important. Yeah, I think that can be lost so quickly. We can think this, but actually, and what I also mean by that, is it affordable? Can people get in? All of those. So my real hope is that it really is. I have a real hope that it's, yep. Now, the whole thing about Web3 is the popular term of do your own research. Yeah, DYOR, really, really important. To do your own research, you need help to do that, which does come back to that education. Yeah. When I first came into Web3, I spent hours just going down rabbit holes of like, oh, that's interesting, go down, but it didn't really fully help me learn about it. Sometimes you need guidance sometimes, so for it to do that. So I really do want it to be safe, and the way for it to be safe is that there's lots of education, but also protection. So, and I just give some little examples. So if you're in the metaverse, for instance, so I've been doing the course that has been run by Punk 6529 and the university, that's been free to everyone, really, really great. But you go into the metaverse, so you go in and you're on the course, yeah? And you go in as an avatar, well, a coin, actually, you're a token. People keep invading my... They literally, yeah, the thing about the metaverse, it's okay when you go in, you kind of bump into someone. But recently, what I notice is more and more people just keep kind of walking through me. And it's very unnerving, yeah? I mean, even though I know it might be a mistake, but there's been times when people have just kept doing it. Even if I hop onto another part of the room, they come over there and they do that again. And so there's something about when we build that kind of protective ring around us in any of the metas. And then we need to, it is those standards, don't we? We do need to have standards of what's acceptable behavior. And that's going to be hard because you're always talking globally and we've all got different value systems about what's right or wrong, but we need to come to a unified set of standards. So anyone who builds a metaverse has to do that. And therefore that means, for me, it will contribute to people safe. And particularly for me, young people and vulnerable people who might go in, I think they need to be safe. So I want it to be accessible. I really want it. I want it to be like inclusive, yeah. And therefore it needs to be affordable. It needs to be, we need to educate people at school so that they know how to, they do know how to use it more, but the more you talk about it at school, the more then everybody uses it. You need to do that. And we need to help adults, particularly older adults, people my age, to learn what it is and how it can really enhance life rather than be a hindrance, because it gives us so many wonderful opportunities. But they're the things that I think I just would really love it to be that, to know that my daughter was in there always safe, that actually everybody could come in. We'd made it accessible to everybody. All you kind of needed is a phone, and everyone in the world, near enough everyone in the world has a phone. And therefore, the other thing that I'd add, I really do believe we should have interoperability, and that boring word, but that actually that's also how you make it accessible. Because if I can only afford to go into one platform because I can't take my kind of skins and my outfits to another platform, you kind of reduce my accessibility. So I would want that too. That's really important.
No, I agree, Alison. I think with the metaverse, we need to build the blocks now around safety and inclusion, not when it hits mainstream adoption. I'm curious, Alison, like what sort of things could we do now, whether that's from a government point of view or from different institutions to make it more inclusive and safe. Run.
Yeah. So I think firstly, I mean, there's things that you might say aren't really Web3 because we need to bring internet except like availability across the globe. Now I know that we do have that and that's growing, but we really need to have, and that needs to be led at a government level. They need to drive that. It needs to be a utility. I mean, we talk about utility in Web3 all the time with NFT projects, but the good old utility of heating, lighting, water, it needs to also be the internet access. I mean, people don't have phones anymore in houses, they have the internet. And those need to be kind of those basic human rights of any property where you go, or even if you're not inside, you're outside. So that's really important that we build the infrastructure. So that's at a government level. And I generally believe they're responsible for driving that and making sure that's at a global. I then think that we need to have education. And I think we need to help our educationalists change how they teach. And this week, there's been a really good Hindu Careers. I've had a 2 days conference all about under 25-year-olds. And they had some amazing speakers about how they would change the education, how they would change how people taught them so that they use the tools of the future to teach about the past. So you would use the metaverse. You could use that to teach about history. You could use the metaverse to teach people chemistry. Yeah. So in India, one project that I know, they're using the metaverse to take people into ancient history so that they can really touch and feel it. Yeah. And that's really important. So I think we need education strategy across each country needs to do their own, but that they're using the tools of the future to look at the past. So we'd always need to learn about the past, what happened before, because that informs the future. But we need the tools of the past to teach it. We always need to be using the tools of the future to talk about the history. Because if you do, you normalize Web3, you normalize everything about Web3, the metaverse, you normalize blockchain so that young people talk about it, they go home and they talk about it. Where at the moment, if you don't have that normalization, it's that thing that people talk about in their bedroom with their friends and can be unsafe because they don't share it. So I think we need to do that as well. And I think generally adults, older people, we need to be much more rounded about thinking, do you know what? Our past was really great, but there's these phenomenal tools that are coming that are going to shape our future. And we need to be celebrating rather than the surprise because we're scared of them. Because do you know what? They're pretty scary if you don't understand them. Yeah. And it is really scary. It's taken me a long time. And I still learn every day.
What, from a Web3 point of view, sometimes it does feel like a closed garden with the sort of terminologies, acronyms that are used on a daily basis. What could we do in the Web3 community to make it easier for people to transition and understand this?
I think we do have to, you're right there. It is about that language, isn't it? It's like everything. We're all use like DYOR, we're all use HODL, we all use like crypto or tokenomics, we all use blockchain, metaverse, we use terms like that. And other people will be like, what are they talking about? It is like a different language. Yeah. So you're right. We need to break it all down. We need to make it so that it's not like cult-like or so inward, that actually it actually is giving the message, we want you all to come in. And that's hard because there is something unique about Web3 at the moment. If you go on Twitter and you listen to the conversations, it's a whole different conversation than you might watch on the news or stuff like that. It's really empowering and inspiring, and anyone can get up on the stage and have those conversations. But we need everybody to be really more mindful and to think about what words am I using? And even if I use that jargon, how do I make sure the person I'm talking to understands it? And therefore, like the guys I work with, I mean, we're a company, and like Metacampus, we have like guys and girls. It's terrible because I always used to like the acronym guys to mean everybody, yeah. But it's like so, but we're like a mixed gender group, and actually, a lot of us, we've all got professional histories in our previous worlds, but we've come together and we've had to learn together. And that's been a really interesting over the last year. And actually, everyone's got a different interest. So David, who's really into tokenomics, he kind of knows that, and everyone, he's our go-to person. Sarah, who is our kind of all things kind of legal governance, we kind of go to her for everything. And then Edu, who is our creator, massive, like really helped us all learn about Web3 is about story living, not storytelling. And he's really helped us all on that journey. And then Vilma, who kind of has been building our infrastructure for us and all the product designs. So, but having to do that in the new language. So really, really important. And then I have to say, like, Pera, who kind of holds it all together and enables us to keep going down different ventures. Because some of us, because we're new to it, we might have gone down so many different like exploration of ideas. We might have said, this is what we've come here to do. It's like Web3 is famous for pivoting. When we first came together as a group, it was like, this is what it is. And it's still doing that, but we've pivoted in how we're going to do that because of our learning about being in the space. But to be honest, we've kind of needed someone who's been a founder for a long time and has founded a number of companies to help people get in that mindset.
Yeah, it brings me back to what you said earlier, Alison. You said bringing passionate people about Web3, different areas of this space into the company, and that has a domino effect across the board.
Yeah, no, that's true. That is true, actually. We are such an array. In a sense, none of us started from Web3. I mean, well, nobody did, but none of us, that like Pera was the one who was most like steeped in Web3. And then we've all come from different professional backgrounds. And what he's always said is Web3 is about every different. We need to represent that, because then we can help people understand that as well. So yeah, no, that's really true, Taza. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Definitely. And I think, Alison, it's been an amazing session because you've covered most of the angles in terms of notions, in terms of understanding values, and even defining what a potential user would be going through right now in the stage of pivoting into Web3. I mean, thank you so much for the session, Alison. I think it's going to take away so much, insights for a lot of users to engage not just with Web3 but also with Metacampus, because I think it's all about the brands having the right mindset to pivot, and when it comes to concepts like story living more than storytelling, I think it's going to bring a big change to how we all think as marketers, designers, founders of companies, and even strategists around the globe. Alison, I think with this session, it has been an amazing perspective that has been built up, and I think it's going to carry on for generations because people like you are leading the space right now, and it's going to bring in the right perspective to the whole concept.
Alison, if you want to join us for a webinar at some point in the future with all other people in this space, and we can get you just talking, it'd be fantastic.
I'd love to do that. And some of us, I know Nick from our team and Victoria, who were also in London with us, they'd love to come and join, and we could be talking and sharing and exploring. So yeah, let's hook up and make that plan and make that happen.
Wicked. I've loved this, Alison. Thank you for joining us.
No worries. So
guys,
have a really lovely evening.
Definitely. Guys, we'll be back with more sessions on LinkedIn Live really soon. Please follow us. And of course, please follow Alison, connect with Alison on LinkedIn, because you know where the right places are to be right now in Web3. So thanks, guys. We'll be back with more episodes in the coming weeks and the coming days itself. Thank you so much. Cheers.